Interesting. So next up, we've got a joint presentation actually from Tom Jones. I'm not even going to say it because I'm sure, I'm not even going to go there. Tom is actually senior principal at Populous. He's got some great examples actually of creating some really engaging spaces. And he's also with a colleague today, Dr. Stefan Kannewischer, from the board of the International Association for Sport and Leisure Facilities, with some insights into the sort of future trends. And actually, I know there's a number of your board member colleagues here today, so welcome from across the globe. And it's great to be hosting you in London. So, gents, I'll throw over to you and you can tag team it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to present to you today the IAKS Future Trends. Before I dive into that, I would like to explain to you briefly what IAKS is. IAKS stands for International Association for Sports and Leisure Facilities. It was founded in 1965 in Cologne. It's the only global non-profit organization for sports and leisure facilities. And we have approximately 1,000 members in 110 countries. The goal of IAKS is the creation of high-quality, functional and sustainable sports and leisure facilities worldwide. We are, as I said, a non-profit organization that wants to foster know-how exchange and networking that people around the globe meet. And that's also the reason why we are the only recognized organization by the IOC for sports and leisure facilities. And I'm honorary president of that organization. Now, I come to the IAKS Future Trends. We have published that last year. You can also download that on our homepage, iaks.org. You don't have to note down. And there's a little bit of text of it. We brought a few extra copies with you also of our magazine if you want to have a look at that. And we have heard that today, and I'm very happy to have seen the presentations from Guy and Jess. One major trend in our society is that people cannot really commit anymore to do sports in a group. The blurring boundaries between leisure time and work mean that individual sports like swimming, jogging, and cycling are having an increase worldwide, whereas the group sports, team sports have tendentially a decline. And of course, this sport has to be done 24/7. That means that often it is done in public space. So public space actually becomes a leisure facility. And also, as you mentioned, the design of our towns has to change in the public space area. Secondly, and we heard that already this morning slightly, there was a question from the back from a lady. Sports halls tend to be still the same box as they always used to be, and on the weekends they are locked down, and the people go into the public space and do their sports there. Secondly, most of the sports facilities are today built for active people, for sportive people, but the future task will be how to make inactive people active. And we will not get inactive people to go into a sports hall and play handball when he hasn't done sports for 20 years and has overweight. So we have to bring people to sports or to activity in a gentle way. You can see here a sports hall from Denmark that doesn't look at all like a sports hall. It looks like a playground, and the kids are running around and playing, but in fact they're doing sports. But it's not. It doesn't feel and look that way, and it is open to individual people, not only to teams. Another trend is expanded accessibility. The word now is inclusivity. In former times, accessibility was basically only for wheelchair users. Now this has expanded a lot, also with our aging society, that the lighting, the signage, etc., has to improve and for our people, and that's something we have to follow in the future. Another point is that with growing individualization of our society, we have more and more trend sports coming up. Every month we hear about a new sport coming up, and of course not every of these sports can have their own sports facility, so the sports facilities in the future have to be a bit more multifunctional. We face enormous economic challenges, not everywhere to the same extent, but in some countries the budget restraints from the municipalities are severe, so they are really struggling to maintain, as we heard this morning also in Britain, all sports facilities. They actually need a renovation. They create huge deficits. How can we keep them up? And they're not fitting the expectations of the people. So there's this trap where the municipalities are faced with several problems at the same time. And we see, of course, an increasing commercialization of sports, especially spectator sports, and there's so much money behind it, so that we have single-purpose stadiums. That wasn't the case in former times. It was you would normally have seen here an athletic track around it. The investment is done privately by the clubs, so this segment is gone. And then we have another segment of commercial fitness centers that make money. That leaves often the municipalities with the unprofitable segment of the market. And that's really a problem, because there's no cross-subsidization possible anymore between the different segments. Then, as the urbanization is continuing and probably even speeding up, of course, space becomes more and more expensive. That means that we have to stack sports grounds, outdoor sports grounds, on top of other buildings. But it means also that the urban space has to be used, as I mentioned already before, multifunctional. And here we have this wonderful example from Copenhagen. Superkillen. It is a park in a socially difficult area with many nationalities around, and they integrated, it was sort of a social inclusion project. They integrated all of the people in the area and said, what do you want to see in that park? And sort of each nationality was able to bring a typical example from their country into this area, which is very large and quite long. And that also led to the effect that they understood it as their own park, and there's almost or no vandalism in this park. So a very good example for that. Whereas in the suburban areas, the sports facilities have a stronger social aspect. With increasing levels of vandalism, hooliganism, and also the threat of terrorism, safety is becoming more and more important in sports and leisure facilities. But also the increasing liability for the operators and owners means that we have to be safe on the materials that we use and the way we guide the guests through the facilities. Then, of course, digitalization is a big issue, and of course we have, that's not really new. You have to be available and have good information before, during, and after the visit of the people of your facility. But also virtual reality is coming along, and sports tracking is an important thing, that people want to measure exactly how did they today, what was their performance in their training. So I think there we see many new things coming along, probably also for the cashier systems, the entrance control, how do we get the people into the facility. So this was a quick glimpse at the future trends. I would like to also guide to you or show to you the biannual congress that IAKS does together with Kannewischer. It's the largest trade show in the world with 25,000 delegates visiting. And that's next year in November, so I would be pleased to meet some of you there. And I hand over to Tom now, who will show us a few examples from Britain.
Thank you, Stefan, and good morning, everyone. For those of you not familiar with Populous, we're a global design company, and we specialize in the design of sports and entertainment facilities. I was lucky enough to work on the Olympic Stadium in 2012, and I'm going to just try and show you a couple of projects that respond to some of the future trends that Stefan has outlined. These are the services that we offer, the traditional architecture, but we also look at interiors, master planning, events, landscape. I think we've been touching on that today, how important the landscape is around these sort of sports buildings. And then the activation, both commercial activation, but also wayfinding and explaining the ways in which people can use these buildings. Last year, we had an opportunity with National Geographic to do a sort of an open blue sky thinking on the stadium of tomorrow. And this was nice for us, you know, just to open up some ideas around how stadia can integrate with the city, how they can be part of a sort of more active leisure environment, obviously the impact of technology within, and sort of some interesting ideas around the roofscape. But I'm going to show some practical examples now and start with the project that I've been working on for the last few years, the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's a 62,000 seat stadium. It has a sliding pitch that moves out under the public space. And what I'm going to concentrate on briefly now is this area to the south, which is where we have this new public square that the club, through their foundation, are sort of looking to activate and use with the local community. So at the southern end, we have this sort of public space that again is very important for activation around outside of a match day. We have a sort of hotel that's used to allow conference and banqueting. But then there's an extreme sports building. I'll show you a slide on that, really looking at new ways of drawing people to a sports facility with residential and commercial. And it's interesting to see the amount of space that we have around the bottom of the stadium, the way that we've tried to design the landscape with an area for sort of five-a-side football, which the Tottenham Foundation will use. Using sort of landscaping to create a sort of sheltered environment and creating this new public realm as part of the project. This is the extreme sports building. We're looking at a sort of indoor climbing, outdoor climbing opportunities, and then along the bottom here, a sort of bouldering zone that's more easier to use for families. And that's how that space looks. That's the extreme sports building here. We've got the entrance to the football club for the south stand here, but it's this sort of environment here where we have the public square, the trees, and the landscaping. On a match day, obviously it has to serve the fans that are coming to the game, so it has to accommodate that. But it's particularly important on a non-match day that it's a welcoming space, particularly as the new residential buildings get built around, an environment in which people will feel safe and come and do that more informal activity. Second project is the Ravenscraig Regional Sports Centre up in Motherwell, developed with Sport Scotland. Here at the bottom left was the old steelworks that was demolished and the whole sort of site cleared. And this regional sports training facility that has indoor and outdoor sports facilities was the first phase, you can see here, the first phase of that regeneration project. It's quite a compact plan. We have sort of indoor athletics, an indoor football hall, the sort of sports hall, multi-purpose space, and sort of changing facilities and a spine that sort of connect to those spaces. And we're trying to create, in a sort of good value way, athletic spaces that can be used for elite, but also very much be suited to the local community to come and get that opportunity to engage in sport. The changing block in the centre has sort of lots of openings that give you viewpoints down into the space, so again, giving that sort of connectivity. We have the sports hall, designed again to be very flexible, things like gymnastics, as well as the more traditional sports that you would expect in a sports hall. And then the dance studio and gyms, which are very popular spaces, used very regularly through the day. So I think it's important to understand the mix of facilities that you get. Again, you see the upper balcony that links into the spaces and just provides that connection and helps people to see what the different sporting opportunities are. The indoor sports hall, which is obviously a key part, getting sort of football, and then the glazed end, which sort of opens out from the indoor to the outdoor space. So again, providing that connection. And the most recent project we're doing for Queen's Park Rangers, a training centre in West London. What's interesting here is how the club is investing in their elite sports facilities, but they're also providing community sports and opportunities here. This is the site at the moment. It's a sort of typical parkland area. The facilities are very poor and run down. And the investment of the club provides both their elite training facilities, but a restoration of football pitches, cricket pitches, multi-purpose space, indoor hall, and community building. And the club obviously needs its facilities for their activities. But it's very much the focus, and we've been working with Sport England as to how these indoor spaces get that variety of activity. A community building that is integrated in the landscape, providing a space that people will feel comfortable in. And then the community pitches and the pavilion, which again will give a greater activation to a site that's very underused at the moment. Just to conclude, next spring, in April, we're going to arrange an event with IAKS, with LLDC, Lee Valley and Greenwich Leisure in the Olympic Park. And the remit of IAKS is to get clients, operators, developers together to sort of talk about the issues that Y Sports are highlighting today. So if you'd like to join us, please let us know. Thank you.